Hello, U.S. History Scholars. Mrs. Olson here with a video lesson on personal identity. This is the first video lesson in our first unit. So, as we go through the lesson on personal identity, I want you to be thinking, who are you? What makes you you? What characteristics do you have that make up your unique self? Okay? As we go through the lesson, I highly encourage you to take notes, whether that is in a digital form like on Google Docs or writing a separate Word document with what we are learning here, or perhaps you are a pen and paper type of person and you like to hand write your notes. Notes help us to remember information, and then of course it gives us an artifact or something to hold as we are going through lessons later on. All right, so here we go. The learning target reads that you will be able to identify the different aspects of identity. So you're going to see that in this lesson, there are going to be 4 terms and then their definitions that you're going to want to be able to figure out on paper, so to speak. So it says that your understanding of identity, the 4 different terms, will connect to the driving question of how can embracing individual identities lead to a more perfect union? This is going to be the overarching question as we go through this unit. How can individual identities, mine, yours, this person, all the people in the United States, how can taking those in, embracing those, respecting those, lead to a more perfect union, which is verbiage taken from founding documents. Okay, next page. This brings us to our first type of identity. So the first one is social identity. And it reads, identity characteristics that affect how others interact with you, and then how you interact with others. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. Examples of social identity could be, and you're going to see that there's some overlap with some of them. They would be race, gender, age, and then there's a whole slew of them more, but just to give you some examples, okay? So let's think about your age. You're a teenager. Do you act differently with your peers compared to, say, adults? Do you act differently, say, with your family members compared to like your public self that goes to the movies or a restaurant or some type of school environment? Okay, so think about those examples when you are thinking of social identity. Identity characteristics that affect how you think, how you act, how you behave with others, and then how others interact with you. Okay, so that's social identity. My animation's out of order, sorry. There it is. Personal identity. So this one is defined as characteristics you would give yourself. So think about traits, behaviors, beliefs, values, or any other kind of characteristics that make you who you are. Here's a question I want you to think of. Do you have a certain belief that influences the way that you think and then the decisions that you might make in your daily life? Do you behave, or do you have certain behaviors that are characteristic of you, or say your family, the group perhaps that has raised you? Do those characteristics make you a little bit different than, say, another person or another group of people? Okay, that's an example of personal identity. All right. Number 3, visible identity. Identity characteristics that are readily seen by others. So things that you can see on the outside, your physical attributes. I have brown hair, brown eyes. You can see those, okay? We talked about age and how some of these are going to overlap a little bit. Perhaps body language is an identifying feature of visible identity. Facial features. I'm a person that talks with their hands a lot, as you can see, okay? That is an identifying characteristic of me. Facial features, even facial expressions, all of those can add up to someone's identity. All right, so right here we've got a graphic and it is an iceberg. Now I want you to look above the waterline in an iceberg and look at the words that this graphic is saying is part of the visible identity. Language, because you can hear it, it's above the waterline. Skin color, body language, location, like where you live. Physical attributes, age. Okay. Invisible identity, identity characteristics that are not readily seen by others. Once again, we've got overlap. Beliefs, values. You can't exactly see marital status. Just because somebody doesn't wear a ring, for example, doesn't mean that they're not married. So you wouldn't necessarily know that they're married. That can be below the waterline. Even education, whether somebody has finished high school, not finished high school, has some kind of degree, doesn't have a degree, you can't always see that, which is why it's characterized as invisible identity or below the waterline. Okay, so here is the graphic, another iceberg graphic that represents some of that. I'm going to pause here for just a second so that you can see it. If you want to look at the graphic for longer, make sure that you are pausing on your end so that you can look at the differences between what's visible and what is not. Okay. Now, this one is titled Understanding the Layers of Identity. So each one of these, it says race, ethnicity, nationality. Let's go through those. Usually associated with biology, race, usually associated with biology and linked with physical characteristics like skin color. Race is a social construct to create hierarchy, different classes of people, and then those different of classes of people, the person or the group that is on the top might have more power than, say, the group that is at the bottom. And then inequality. Ethnicity, cultural characteristics that distinguish, so think about distinguish as difference, separates one group from another. Nationality, status of belonging to a specific nation by birth or citizenship. Okay. And there's 2 more after this. Come on. And then gender and sexuality. So the socially constructed roles, or gender is a socially constructed role. Behaviors go along with that, expressions, and identities of girls, women, boys, men, and gender diverse people. Okay. And then sexuality, feelings, thoughts, attractions, and behaviors toward other people. All right, so here we have another one. You keep seeing it over and over again. That is the identity iceberg. And once again, here is the waterline. And you can see that some of them, you can see a little bit above the waterline, a little bit below the waterline. They kind of straddle the waterline, if you will. So these would be everything that is visible as far as personality or personal identity goes. And then everything else underneath is below that waterline. You can't necessarily see it, but they do make up a person's identity. Okay, and then I've got a few other graphics to help you begin understanding and constructing your own definition of personal identity. All right, that brings us to the very end of this video lesson. You want to use your notes or replay the video to help you find the correct definitions to match with the correct terms. Please let me know if you have any questions on anything by writing to me through the Canvas inbox. Bye.